agriculture as a powerful nature-based solution.
The IPCC has made it clear that regenerative agriculture is one of the keys to solving the climate crisis. Soils are a natural carbon sink, storing several times more carbon than the atmosphere. But global soil carbon stocks have been declining due to the conversion of landscapes to croplands and overgrazing from increasing livestock. Regenerative agriculture is a land management practice that prioritizes soil health by rebuilding organic carbon and can improve carbon sequestration of soil and increases its water retention and reduces erosion. You can see from this graphic of the carbon storage capacity of atmosphere, biosphere, and pedosphere that while planting many more trees would certainly decrease CO2 levels through photosynthesis, the soil can hold more carbon matter. It also takes decades for trees to reach maturity, time we just don't have. So we should focus on making the soil healthy while planting trees. Regenerative agriculture, or RA, works with nature, often mimicking natural processes. And it also relies on and restores them and relies on several principles and practices that are pretty self-explanatory when you think about it. Least disturbance of the soil, living roots in which cover crops keep roots in the ground most of the year, farmers using soil armor in the form of compost and decomposing plant matter, animal integration, increased biodiversity, and finally, and not always mentioned, regenerative farmers tie their decisions to the natural context, considering the terrain, climate, and weather, and ideal crops. So let's go over the regenerative practices. No-till practices slow evaporation, which not only means better absorption of rainwater, but it also increases irrigation efficiency, ultimately leading to higher yields, especially during hot and dry weather. It also keeps organic carbon matter in the ground, while tilling adversely exposes the soil carbon to oxygen in the atmosphere, transforming it into carbon dioxide and contributing to the greenhouse gas emissions that warm the planet. By rolling the remains of a harvested crop and using a seed drill to plant, the soil armor is preserved. Similarly, the practice of turning soil in home gardens also destroys carbon soil matter. Cover crops are basically not the same as those which a farmer sells for profit, such as corn or soybeans. Cover crops' primary job is to improve the soil. They get planted in fields that would otherwise be bare in between growing seasons, for example, to protect the soil from erosion and nutrient loss. Cover crops also help smother weeds to control pests and diseases, enhance water availability, and increase biodiversity on the farm, and even restore nutrients. Balancing conventional organic practices on his Austin, Minnesota farm and ranch, Tom Cotter says he strives for quality, not quantity. Tom uses 20 different varieties of plants in his cover crops for off-season grazing of his livestock that restores and protects the soil. This photo is of South Dakota farmer Rick Bieber, showing farmers the 10 different cover crops at the Soul of the Soil Conference at Fields of Cincinnati in Southwest Wisconsin, a new farmer-to-farmer training center. Regenerative farmers and ranchers make every effort to reduce their reliance on synthetic inputs, such as herbicides, pesticides, and chemical fertilizers. In the process of prioritizing soil health, many growers naturally use fewer chemical inputs. Instead, as beneficial insects and wildlife return and diverse crop and livestock rotations disrupt weed cycles, the ecosystem becomes more resilient. And with fewer toxic chemicals, there are reduced human health risks as well, increased financial independence from avoiding the recurring costs of synthetic inputs also is helpful. Compost reduces the need for chemical inputs by helping to restore the soil biome, providing a diversity of microorganisms and nutrients. It adds to the soil armor, increasing water retention, and the process of creating compost recycles farm materials as well. Under rotational grazing, only one portion of the pasture is grazed at a time, while the remainder of the pasture rests. To accomplish this, Pastures are subdivided into smaller areas called paddocks, and livestock are moved from one paddock to another. And rested grazing paddocks allows for the forage plants to renew energy reserves, deepen their root systems, and give long-term maximum production. It also helps to loosen the soil, add natural fertilizers, and increase biodiversity. Cattle can be grazed off winter plantings of cover crops that will help protect and restore the soil for spring planting. This controlled grazing photo is also from the fields of Cincinnati. With biological and crop diversity, a rich mix of microorganisms, plants, and animals on the farmland creates healthy, nutrition-dense soil, strong crops, and resilient natural systems that don't require chemical intervention to manage pests and disease while increasing soil carbon. Farmers also incorporate perennials, trees, and shrubs, which naturally keep the roots in the ground while also providing habitat for pollinators and other birds and insects, as well as other wildlife. According to Project Drawdown, agroforestry practices are some of the best natural methods to pull carbon out of the air. A 200 million hectare increase worldwide of deliberate integration of trees and grazing livestock operations on the same land could sequester more than enough to offset all the carbon dioxide emitted by humans globally. Tree root systems also improve the aggregation of the soil and organic matter. Agroforestry not only improves farmers' financial stability through diversification, but contributes to protection against severe weather events, improves air, water, and soil quality, and provides critical biodiversity for local habitats. It also contributes to improved health and well-being of the farmers. Due to diversification, land can also be harvested multiple times in one season, increasing profit and decreasing chances of total crop loss. Let's look at some of the main practices of agroforestry. Alley cropping is the practice of planting single or multiple rows of trees with cultivated crops in the alleys between the tree rows. There's strong evidence that alley cropping systems can reduce runoff and soil erosion by water, improve nutrient use efficiency, sequester carbon, and increase biodiversity. Windbreaks, also known as shelter belts, are the intentional planting of trees and or shrubs as barriers to protect a specific area downwind, reduce wind erosion of soils, improve growth and yield performance, protect plants directly from wind damage, and increase the availability of water by reducing evaporation. They also help reduce animal stress on pasture land. The 1930 Dust Bowl resulted from plowing of grasses to plant crops, drying the soil. This spurred the implementation of windbreaks. Unfortunately, decades later, the federal government encouraged farmers to plant every acre of land, removing windbreaks and suggesting crop rotation and different plowing methods to keep the topsoil in place. The 84 cars that crashed on I-55 on May 1st, 2023, with 8 lives lost due to a dust storm caused by conventional tilling on the abutting farm, has similarly led to renewed calls for Illinois farmers to re-examine what they plant in the ground and how they plant it. Windbreaks and low or no-till are natural solutions to stop these dust storms and to keep topsoil in place. Riparian forest buffers are the cultivated trees, shrubs, or perennial plants along the edges of streams, lakes, or wetlands to buffer water bodies from potential negative impacts of surrounding cropland or pasture by reducing soil erosion and runoff of sediment and nutrients, stabilizing banks, improving water quality, and increasing biodiversity. They can also provide perennial crops, another source of revenue for a farmer or rancher. Silvopasture combines trees with forage and livestock production, managed as a single integrated system that is actively used to graze livestock. Converting pasture to silvopasture diversifies a rancher's sources of revenue and can provide the security of revenue from tree crops like fruits, nuts, and/or timber. The trees in silvopasture systems can also shade livestock from direct sunlight and provide livestock with limited protection from cold weather. Forest farming is the practice of cultivating high-value, shade-tolerant specialty crops under the protection of a forest managed to provide a favorable microclimate for understory crops like mushrooms and medicinal herbs. In addition to providing valuable ecosystem services, forest farming can help protect forests from clearing for other uses. Forest farming allows farmers to farm vertically as well as horizontally, adding greater value to their land due to the storied layered harvesting capacity. So, Those are all the different practices of RA and AG, as we call regenerative agriculture and agroforestry. So let's see, what are the benefits? Regenerative agriculture is a key solution to climate change. Together with forestry and other land use, agriculture is responsible for just under 25% of all human-created greenhouse gas emissions. According to Rodale Institute, with the use of cover crops, compost, crop rotation, and reduced tillage, we can actually sequester more carbon than is currently emitted, tipping the needle past 100% to reverse climate change. And when soil is healthy, it contains a diverse community of microorganisms that help break down organic matter and release nutrients that plants need to grow. Regenerative practices such as cover cropping, crop rotations, reduced tillage, and the use of natural fertilizers and amendments help to build soil organic matter, increase water holding capacity, and improve soil structure. As a result, plants grown in regenerative managed soils are better able to access the nutrients they need to grow and thrive. This leads to crops with higher nutritional content as well as improved taste and flavor. A study shown here by Montgomery et al. Consisted of farms in North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Iowa, Tennessee, Kansas, North Dakota, and Montana, in which each regenerative farm was paired with a proximal, conventionally managed farm with the same soil type and planted with a strand of the same crop variety as a conventional neighbor, which it could have been peas, sorghum, corn, or soybeans. This study found that regenerative farms were consistently higher, with up to 5 times more soil organic matter, or a mean of 2.0 for all farms, and up to 7 times higher soil organic health scores with a mean of 3.3. Additional research has shown that regeneratively managed crops contain higher levels of important nutrients like vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants compared to conventionally managed crops. For example, one study found that regeneratively managed wheat had 58% more selenium and 27% more zinc than conventionally managed wheat. Another study found that regeneratively managed vegetables had 22% more iron and 19% more vitamin C than conventionally managed vegetables. These metrics show the potential of regenerative agriculture to improve the nutritional quality of our food system. To discern how profitable RA is for farmers, a comparative study of 10 regenerative and 10 conventional Midwest corn farms was done by Claire Lacan and Jonathan Lundgren at South Dakota State University. Regenerative cornfields were defined as those that implemented 3 or more practices, such as planting a multi-species cover crop mix, eliminating pesticide use, abandoning tillage, and integrating livestock into crop ground. Conventional cornfields used fewer than 2 of these practices. The regenerative systems had 70% higher profit than conventional cornfields, even though they had a 30% decrease in output. This is mainly because the conventional farmers had high costs for synthetic inputs, and the regenerative farmers were able to sell at diversified markets like CSAs, farmers markets, and co-ops that usually brought them more money. Increased water capacity through infiltration results from plant residues that cover the soil surface. This also reduces runoff. Increased organic matter contributes indirectly to aggregating, making spaces in the soil by stimulating the movement of insects and microorganisms, thereby increasing the soil's capacity to hold water. Healthy soil just has 3 to 6% organic matter. If the soil organic matter is increased just 1%, the soil can hold 20,000 more gallons of water per acre. Think about it. That's a solution to our extreme weather events. And water retention is what we need to protect our water sources. Today, industrial agriculture is producing crisis levels of runoff, pollution that washes off farm fields after rain events and into our rivers, streams, and oceans. That runoff carries synthetic chemicals, fertilizers, and erosion soil that can contaminate waterways like the Mississippi River watershed, which encompasses over 40% of the continental U.S., crossing 22 state boundaries. Nitrogen and phosphorus pollution and runoff and discharges from agricultural and urban areas are the major contributors to the annual summer hypoxic zone in the Gulf of Mexico. Illinois is a big contributor to that runoff. RA and agroforestry practices can help stop this runoff. Finally, biodiversity is a fundamental to agriculture production and food security, as well as a valuable ingredient of environmental conservation. Yet predominant patterns of agricultural growth, which worldwide focuses on only 5 main crops, corn, rice, wheat, cassava, and soybean, have eroded biodiversity. Biodiversity has been threatened by the expansion of agricultural production to frontier areas, which is a reason why the US butterfly populations are down 22% since 2000. Practices that conserve sustainability, use, and enhance biodiversity are necessary at all levels in farming systems and are of critical importance for food production, livelihood, security, health, and the maintenance of ecosystems. RA will reintroduce native biodiversity to our farms and our home
Trees are the silent champions of the environment. They absorb carbon dioxide through photosynthesis, storing it in biomass in forest soils, effectively removing CO2, a major greenhouse gas, from the atmosphere. Forests have significant capacity to sequester carbon, storing 891 gigatons of CO2. By preventing soil degradation and erosion, they also prevent CO2 release. The same is true for mangrove forests, which store approximately 11.7 billion metric tons of CO2 and are also critical habitats for biodiversity, filtering water, and are natural buffers against tsunamis and other storm surges. They are also highly endangered, both forests and mangroves. In 2019, forest CO2 absorption decreased by a third from the 1990s. This was principally due to drought and extreme temperatures. Plants and trees are becoming less able to absorb CO2 due to these issues, with trees and land absorbing almost no CO2 in 2023, the hottest year on time. Slide. As seen here, deforestation, the world has seen massive deforestation of tropical and boreal forests. This shows by commodity, a major driver of climate change. We've lost 488 million hectares of tree cover since the turn of the century due to logging, with an estimated 80 to 90% of clear cutting. Agriculture also includes slashing and burning, which degrades ecosystems significantly. Consumption-driven for deforestation from palm oil, beef, and timber, wildfires, and urbanization. Deforestation contributes to between 12 to 20% of global greenhouse gases, and forests have experienced a net loss of 4.7 million hectares a year from 2015 to 2020. Despite deforestation slowing after this, in 2023, we lost 28.3 million hectares, the largest yearly loss since the start of the century, largely due to forest fires. When forests are clear, it takes years for them to recover, disrupting critical ecosystems, driving species extinctions, and turning carbon sinks into sources. Slide. Forests stabilize the climate and global temperatures by cooling the atmosphere through their role in atmospheric moisture and cloud production, which influences global weather patterns. They clean and sequester the water as soil filters the water, absorbing pollutants through their roots, storing water captured through rainfall, and gradually releasing it to maintain stream flows and recharge groundwater, aquifers, and other waterways, while also cooling the air by lowering ambient temperatures, thus decreasing heat waves and flooding. They provide windbreaks, which protect against strong storms, protect ecosystems and other species. These are complex and interconnected systems that work together to stabilize the environment, and when we disrupt one, we impact the whole system. Slide. So how can we help forests? There are three main ways: preservation, reforestation, and afforestation. Reforestation is the restoring of degraded forests. Afforestation is creating new forests and protecting existing forests. Things that are helpful are legislative support, coalition building, supporting sustainable forest management that balances ecological sustainability, economic viability, and regenerative capacities, as well as fire management, sustainable timber practices, and the prohibition of illegal farming. These are all important things. Buying forest safe certified products also makes a difference, and we can share a certification list if people are interested. In this slide, if you look at the lower part, there are two different projects: the afforestation project on the right, which is in Costa Rica, that took degraded cattle ranching land and turned it into thriving forests, restoring 736 hectares. The afforestation project on the left is in China, and they planted forests on barren land owned by villagers. The revenue generated by selling the verified carbon units was shared with the villagers, providing them with direct economic benefit. And this project also created 15,220 jobs, 70% of which were held by women. And it expects to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 10,077,450 tons of CO2 over the next 29 years. A preservation project was the Cumberland Forest Project in the US, which encompasses 253 acres. I don't have a picture of this, across Virginia, Kentucky, and Tennessee. It's one of Nature Conservancy's largest conservation endeavors in eastern US. The project is aiming to restore and protect vital forest landscapes, ensuring ecological health and biodiversity. And we have a guide to some coalitions if you are interested in that too. Slide. So shifting a little to urban forests, this slide shows the critical benefits they provide to communities, from health to pollution, heat island mitigation, mental health and physical health, as well as recreation. Tree-lined streets enhance property values, they sequester water and reduce flooding, and they also lessen crimes. Trees are good for you. Protecting old growth trees, like our coalition work around treating ash trees, is environmentally important, as older trees provide greater benefits. It's also important to encourage tree plantings in your cities, like our 311 project, where you can call and get a tree. These are important nature-based solutions available to us in urban areas. And green infrastructure is the only infrastructure in cities that gains value as it ages. Slide. In addition, trees just help us feel better. They release phytoncides into the air to protect themselves from predators. Research has shown that inhaling these chemicals boosts our immune system by releasing killer cells that support immune responses to cancer and other illnesses, while also reducing stress and improving mental well-being. This is the underlying process of forest bathing, and we probably all know from our own experiences that we feel better when we're walking around trees. Other research has shown trees help with attention span, that children who look out on green spaces are better able to concentrate and focus in school. Trees also help build social capital, and areas with trees have statistically less violent crime. Tree-laden areas provide recreational opportunities while also encouraging physical activity, and that also correlates to lower rates of obesity. Slide. Air quality is another important function of trees. There's between a 7 and 24% reduction in particulate matter, which is the microscopic particles that get trapped in our lungs from a tree, around a tree, that reduces air pollution and could have an estimated 6.2 million, save an estimated 6.2 million lives a year, according to a Nature Conservancy study. Research has found residents in areas with more urban trees have lower rates of childhood respiratory illnesses, especially asthma and other respiratory and health related illnesses, cardiac issues, and certain cancers. People heal faster from surgery around trees, and these are just some of the benefits. The Green Heart Project in Louisville built a bank of 8,000 trees along a 4-mile highway that blocked a residential neighborhood. And what they found was decreased rates of cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular issues, and respiratory stress, as well as heat mitigation, air quality improvement, and increased mental well-being. It's a really interesting study. We're happy to share it if you'd like. Trees are actually a public health issue. New slide. Trees also support a complex ecosystem of insects, fungi, plants, and animals. Patty talked a lot about this. Old growth trees as well as native trees are habitats from below their soil to the top of the canopies. Forests are home to 80% of terrestrial species. There are 60,000 different tree species worldwide. 80% of amphibians, 75% of bird species, and 68% of mammals live in forests, making them critical habitats for these groups. The loss of forests is driving extinctions through habitat loss and fragmentation, leaving species very vulnerable to various threats at a rate that is quite alarming. And we are one of those species. We are facing an insect apocalypse, destabilizing ecosystems and decreased genetic diversity, vital for a species adaptation and resilience. In urban settings, tree canopies and native plants are critical to providing habitat and nature corridors for diverse living species, both native and migratory. The oak tree, a keystone species here in Chicago, can support over 300 different species as opposed to an exotic tree planted. As Patty will highlight, in cities, native plantings are native plant, sorry, dis, native plantings are critical to provide nature corridors for local biodiversity. Despite their importance, trees face significant stress from climate change, poor stewardship, and invasive species that can disrupt and kill off native species. New slide. Trees also cool our cities through shade and water evaporation of their leaves. Adequate tree cover on a city block can provide up to 10 degrees of cooling. Shade can lower the ambient temperature in the air by as much as 15 to 20 degrees, and has a similar cooling effect on the surface temperatures of buildings, with shaded areas running between 20 to 45 degrees cooler than if left unshaded. Even in cities with dense development, areas with trees are 2.9 degrees cooler than areas without them. Research predicts that heat islands, which are created by these buildings absorbing heat and not releasing it, will increase as cities become more dense. Planting trees is an important solution to help manage global warming's impact on urban spaces and the health of citizens. New slide. Trees are also a social equity issue. In Chicago neighborhoods, tree cover varies from 7% in certain areas to over 46% in other areas. This has serious impacts positively and negatively on the health and well-being of those in these different areas. Many of the same Chicago neighborhoods with low tree canopy have residents who have more vulnerabilities to illness, chronic childhood respiratory conditions, and violent crime. Nationally, low-income areas have at least 25% less tree cover than their wealthier counterparts. There are a number of interesting tree equity tools, one by American Forest and others. We have a guide if you're interested, to help assess the impact of local tree canopies, to guide decision makers on how to prioritize enhancing tree canopies related to different indices. And now I think we go back to Patty.
And now, for all you gardeners, here's how you can regenerate at home. Doug Ptolemy is an entomologist at the University of Delaware. In his book, Nature's Best Hope, he encourages each one of us to create a wild habitat in our yards so that together we can create the largest homegrown national park in the U.S. Our bees, butterflies, and other pollinators need corridors to move through where they can find native plants, and we can create those corridors by planting native pollinators like milkweed in our gardens. There are somewhere around 40 million acres of lawn in the lower 48. Turf grass is occupying 1.9% of the surface of the continental United States, would be the single largest irrigated crop in the country. Conservatively, American lawns take up 3 times as much space as irrigated corn. The American lawn offers nothing for our pollinators and is poisoned with pesticides and herbicides. So what's so great about native plants, and why do we need them now? Doug Ptolemy writes, in the past, we have asked one thing of our gardens, that they be pretty. But now they have to support life, sequester carbon, feed pollinators, and manage water. So let's talk about the benefits. Low maintenance. Native plants are those that naturally occur and have evolved in a specific region over thousands of years. They are well adapted to the local climate and conditions and wildlife, making them resilient and low maintenance choices for gardeners. Since they're also perennials, once they're established, much of your work is done. Native plants do not require chemical fertilizer as pesticides as they are less prone to diseases and pests, saving you money in the long term while creating a healthier environment. Native plants are the ecological basis upon which life depends, including birds and people. Without them and the insects that co-evolved with them, local birds cannot survive. For example, research by Ptolemy has shown that native oak trees support over 500 species of caterpillar, whereas ginkgo is a commonly planted landscape tree from Asia, hosts only 5. When it takes over 6,000 caterpillars to raise one brood of chickadees, that's a pretty significant difference. And these beautiful keystone plants attract pollinators. Here you can see a hummingbird, a bee, and monarch caterpillars on great blue lobelias, sneeze weed, and butterfly weed in my yard. Why are deep root systems so incredibly important? What we see above ground is typically only about a third of the plant. Roots exist out of sight and can reach anywhere from 6 to 14 feet into the soil. Yep, these extensive roots do absorb moisture and nutrients, but they do so much more. They anchor the plant in the soil as plants try to reach for sunlight. They store excess food for future needs underground. They nourish the soil by dying and regrowing their roots each year, which helps build topsoil. They fix nitrogen in the soil, like legumes, and increase bioproductivity, absorbing and holding toxins and heavy metals, and also carbon sequestration. And they prevent erosion because fibrous roots hold the soil and absorb more runoff. Corridors work by increasing connectivity between patches that are isolated because of habitat fragmentation, due primarily to urbanization, agriculture, and forestry. Habitat fragmentation impacts animal and plant populations because they're not able to rebound from habitat disturbance like diseases or fires, since the organisms cannot move easily from one area to another. Since populations are cut off from each other, reduced genetic diversity is another result. Habitat fragmentation due to human activity is ever-increasing threat to biodiversity. So habitat wildlife corridors are a possible mitigation. Most native bees have a range of about 750 meters. So the goal is to connect properties that are no farther apart than that can support pollinators and other healthy things that our insects need. Dense native landscaping is the best protection against invasive plants taking hold. Invasive plants are non-native, able to thrive in a variety of conditions, grow quickly, and spread to the point of disrupting plant communities or ecosystems. When planning your landscaping, if you cannot work entirely with native species, it's critical that you avoid the dozens of invasive plants that are still popular to landscapers, such as burning bush, Callery pear, and winter creeper. If you ever have a chance to go to Fullersburg and Hinsdale, you will see in action the removal of invasives that they have done over the last year, and then incorporating 80,000 new wildflower plugs. It's absolutely phenomenal. According to Regenerate America, the national regenerative group that produced Kiss the Ground and Common Ground documentaries, there's 5 ways that you can regenerate at home. Ditch the chemicals. You can also keep the roots in the soil, which is pretty easy since most natives are perennials. You can encourage biodiversity because the more different insects we can bring to our yard and the more plants that we can provide for them will enrich the soil and make it much healthier. Creating a garden with plants that are native to the area will attract local insects, including bees and butterflies. Deeper roots will help nourish soil and increase water retention. And once native plants are established, they're pretty resilient. I don't even water mine. 4th thing you can do is to grow food in your yard, thereby ensuring that the soil is nutrient dense and pesticide free. And the 5th thing you can do is compost. Yard and food waste can be added to the soil nutrients. Rain barrels will help preserve water, and instead of buying compost and adding store-bought nutrients, recycle the materials in your yard as they are all organic matter, leaves, grass, clippings, plant-based refuse. Karen and I created this native garden landscaping guide to share with HOAs in the hopes of transforming some of their many conventional gardens in the Chicago area to those that would include native plants. This resource includes the hows and the whys of native gardening, as well as places to purchase plants, how you can design gardens, and who you can ask questions. And the link will be put in the chat. So how can you individuals and gardeners regenerate? You can support your local farmers who are using regenerative agriculture and sustainable land use practices. A 2002 study showed that the average distance the produce travels to get to our Chicago area grocery stores is about 1,500 miles. That means that what's picked is certainly not ripe, and the process of transporting it to Chicagoland expends a lot of CO2. Food that's grown organically in your yard is much more nutritious. The food that's being sold at the farmer's market was picked just a few days before your purchase, and its journey to the farmer's market was not a long one, keeping the CO2 expenditures down. Additionally, these farmers are either organic or they use minimal inputs, making their produce healthier and more nutrient dense. And it's important to ask those farmers questions about the food they grow. Did you grow your own produce? Do you grow diversified crops on your farm? Were regenerative agricultural practices like cover crops, crop rotation, compost, and no-till used? Were pesticides or synthetic fertilizers used? Was there pre-harvest spraying? Do you use rotational grazing to improve soil health and keep animals healthy while decreasing methane emissions? And do you have any certifications? Big certification is the Regenerative Organic Certified, which was established in 2017 by a group of farmers, business leaders, and experts in soil health, animal welfare, and social fairness. And it's collectively called Regenerative Organic Alliance, or ROA. The products are more nutritious, and their purchase supports RA farmers. These are just a few of the many products that have that certification. The ROA action statement is, we exist to heal a broken system, repair a damaged planet, and empower farmers and eaters to create a better future through regenerative organic farming. Wow, I'm sold. Here are some of the resources that you can use in order to learn more about regenerative agriculture and how you can be part of the system, whether that's at home, in your community, or lobbying efforts or anything else. Another way you can help is through your purchase power. EWG is Environmental Working Group. It's an independent nonprofit organization that's largely funded by individual donations and grants from charitable foundations. Made up of scientists, attorneys, analysts, data and communication specialists, the team's a diverse group of experts with deep knowledge about environmental health. Their mission is to empower you with breakthrough research to make informed choices and live a healthy life. And a product can become EWG verified if it meets EWG's criteria for overall product hazard score, does not contain any ingredients in EWG's unacceptable list, and it discloses all ingredients, including those in fragrance. I use this site for most of my cleaning products. By supporting products that have healthy ingredients, you are driving the increased production of these sustainable goods. Here's another way, the Yucca app. It's an independent source for evaluating foods and cosmetics that was originally released in France in 2017 and then US and Canada in 2022. And according to their website, they have over 55 million users. You just scan barcodes of food and cosmetic products and get a rating of how healthy or not they are. And it's free for this first level step. The scoring system for nutritional quality is based on a method adopted by several European countries called Nutri-Score, which grades the nutritional quality of food products based on energy and calories, sugars, saturated fats, sodium, fiber, and protein, and of fruit, vegetables, legumes, and nuts. Here you see the super high score for Vital Farms Restorative Organic Eggs, 94 out of 100, which I took out of my refrigerator to scan. When you scan a product that has poor nutritional score, the app's going to give you alternatives to this product that are much higher scores. So, for example, the all-popular Honey Nut Cheerios rates a dismal 8 out of 100, which is reflective of the additives, sugar, calories, and sodium. This app does not take into account the oats are pre-harvested glyphosated crop, but it does give a positive for products that are organic. So I'm trying Kashi's Organic Honey Toasted Oats. They scored a 100 out of 100. And while you're purchasing to be green, you have to be careful about greenwashing. So U.S. consumers need only look north to see the effects of paper production on our environment. The world's largest intact forest, the Canadian boreal, is being cut down at an alarming rate, more than 1 million trees per year, 1 million acres per year, in part to feed consumer demand for paper products. And much of that demand comes from the U.S. 2022, it accounted for 65% of all Canada's pulp and paper exports, which are then used by some of the biggest household brands for everything from paper towels to toilet paper. So it's really important to read and understand the labels, because so many toilet paper plants are claiming that they are 100% recyclable. They are not 100% recycled material. An A+ grade by NRDC in their toilet paper report card says that the tissue products are made entirely of recycled material, use a chlorine-free bleaching process, and have the highest percentage of post-consumer recycled paper. Important, that diverts waste from landfills and promotes a more circular economy, and produces less than 1/3 of the carbon equivalent greenhouse gas emissions as compared to those made from new fiber construction, which is pre-consumer recycled material. Still comes from a virgin tree, it just has been pulped so that you can use it. They also save on water too, requiring about half as much water to produce. Some of the highest scoring toilet paper brands are Aria, Green Forest, Natural Value, Trader Joe's, and 365 by Whole Foods Market, all of which have 80% post-consumer recycled content. So you have to read and understand labels. One of the most ecologically strong reactions that you can have to consumerism waste is found in the term precycling. This term means that you refuse to buy what you don't need, you reduce what you do need, and you reuse what you can't reduce before you recycle it. These pictures show some of the ways I do that at home, from rain barrels and composting to reusable jars, tote bags, groceries, wool balls for the dryer, and beeswax wraps. Once you begin to switch out wasteful practices in these small areas, then your green decisions will begin to expand to all areas of your life. And keep in mind, thrifting is all the rage now. I created this 8-page Green at Home guide a couple of years ago and have been trying to keep it updated. So if you have any additional ideas that you use at home or work, please let me know, and I would happily add them to this list. The link will also be in the chat. And share what you do with others, as the small actions that we make can also be empowering when we collectively undertake them.
Just one thing in terms of what Patty is talking about, there is research that shows that if people think that you're doing things, they are more inclined to follow suit, whether or not you're doing them. So kind of sharing out information is really important. In terms of our chapter work, our tree team is supporting a number of legislative efforts. I'll talk about those in a minute. Locally, we're partnering with a number of organizations around the Save the Canopy, which is a group effort to try to protect old growth trees in our community and to expand our urban tree canopy. And educationally, we are working on this HOA and native planting education to support nature corridors that Patty has highlighted, both in meeting with different stakeholders, but also in boothing at environmental events and farmers markets. So one of the things we think is really important is just to get out there and talk to people about what you're doing and what can make a difference. We also have a solar team that is working on solar issues, a legislative team that is working both on nature-based solutions, but also other things if anybody is interested in that. And Chicago has a number of wonderful tree-related resources that we can share if people are interested. I was not able to drop things into the chat. I don't know why. My computer's not letting me do that. So if you would like any of the guides that we have, we're happy to email them to you, but put your email in the chat so that we can do so. Next slide. Legislatively, we're currently working on a couple of nature-based solution bills. The Wetland Protection Act seeks to restore in Illinois protections lost due to the Supreme Court case against the EPA. And we currently have bipartisan support, but need to get to Governor Pritzker to bring him on board to support this effort. And so if anybody is interested in working on that, please let us know. We're also advocating for the Deforestation Free Illinois Act that would limit Illinois government's purchases, insisting that they be free of deforestation, forest degradation, and human rights violations. Illinois would be the first state in the country to have such an act, although it's been implemented in certain parts of Europe. And we think it's a really important thing to help protect as one means of protecting our forests globally around the world. Another legislation, which is federal, that I think are hoping to include is RAWA, which is, I can't remember what it stands for now, but it provides $1.3 billion dollars annually to take care of at-risk, endangered, and other wildlife habitats. 100 million of those would go to tribal nations for conservation work in 140 million acres of land that they conserve, and the protection also of less charismatic species. This currently has bipartisan support, but is in limbo in committee right now. So we're hoping to help move those forward, and we'll be sending out action alerts.
I want the rest of the butternut squash.
Pardon?
Oh.
Oh,
So
Georgia,
sorry.
no worries. So next. One project that we're very interested in, but haven't gotten very far with and would love people to become involved with if interested, is to develop Miyawaki forests on empty city lots in low tree canopy areas of Chicago. The Miyawaki method densely plants native species for all 4 layers of a forest canopy, and then takes care of them watering and weeding for 3 years until they establish and become more self-sufficient. After that time, the forest uses natural selection and competition to accelerate the growth of the forest. And the close spacing of the native saplings means that the root systems quickly kind of knit together, and the saplings grow as one large ecosystem rather than as individual plants. All of this works to accelerate the rate at which these forests grow. Next slide. The beauty of this method is that it has the ability to be on a very small footprint. It can be 30 meters by 30 meters to projects that span multiple acres in different countries. But you can bring the benefits of a forest into cities, especially those with low tree density areas or areas with high health risks. Within 10 years, these little mini forests begin to produce and provide the benefits of full forests in terms of air, water, and health, and therefore can make a huge difference in terms of the benefits to citizens in those areas. And as native gardens, they also support local biodiversity and benefit and corridors and benefit not just the humans, but all the living creatures that reside in those areas. Our hope is to get funding and collaborators for this project. And Nordstrom Green Earth, a foundation here in Chicago, has already planted one little forest in Markham. It's, I think, 3 years old now, and is developing a second forest. So that's also a very important thing. So my number one nature-based solution is to plant and protect trees and native plants. And those are things that we're strongly advocating for in our chapter. Next slide. And we thank you all for coming and doing whatever you're doing to help restore nature's ability to take care of us and other creatures. And we are open for any conversation.
Well, that was excellent. Thank you, Karen and Patty. Well done. I was wondering, I saw a couple of guides, I believe. Do you have links to where we can get those guides? The one on for HOA gardening, and there was another guide, I think.
We have those guides. I tried to drop them into the chat, but for some reason it's not working. So hopefully we can email them to people if they're interested, or you can contact us and we can get them to you.
Yeah, we don't want to contact everybody, but if people can say in the link that they want a guide, in the chat rather, if they want a guide, that would help us.
Mm-hmm. And we have multiple guides. So there's coalition guides, there's the guides we put together for HOA and nature corridors and other guides around resources in the city and nationally.
Great. So I didn't see many questions in the chat. I did see one comment by Holly Pollinger from DC. Holly, did you want to make a statement regarding your observations? Maybe she's not here.
I think she had to get off.
Oh, she had to get off. Okay. So, any other questions? You can raise your hand or just pop right in, unmute yourself.
This is Karen Lewis. Thank you so much. That was so informative, and there's so many opportunities. The toilet paper slide, I've been buying Who Gives a Crap. I have a friend who's in the B2B business, like scrap, like taking waste from one company and using it in another production at another company. And he keeps on questioning me on this because he says that Who Gives a Crap toilet paper is really sourced from China. So when you start thinking about the travel it takes to ship that over here, all the benefits that coming from the natural forest, et cetera, are completely outweighed. And I'm just wondering if your research.
Well, the one thing I know about Who Gives a Crap is if you're buying bamboo toilet paper, which is supposed to be so lovely because bamboo grows so fast, it's coming from China. We're not growing any bamboo here.
Right.
However, the paper I am not sure about. So they also have a part post-consumer recycled paper. And I know Pam uses that, I believe, but I'm not sure it is from the
Yeah.
United States.
Yeah, I've been wondering about it, even though I've been using it. I've been wondering if, and based on this chart, I might have to make a switch.
Yeah.
So in other words, switch to, instead of the bamboo, to the recycled paper content.
Yeah, you should not. The bamboo has got to travel to get here.
Right,
It's not
right.
even ranked in the top 10.
Okay.
And, you can get, I was using 365. It's lovely. You get 30 rolls at a time, so you don't have to go buy it all the time.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm boycotting Amazon right now, so I've moved on to Trader Joe's and a couple other places. My co-op in Oak Park that sells toilet paper and other places. So that's the cool part about it. There are a lot of places now that are producing up to 80% post-consumer recycled. That's a good
Yeah.
thing.
Well,
There are some that are not even on this list.
One other thing that people can do, and may or may not like this, is to get a bidet, which actually reduces your reliance on toilet paper fairly significantly.
Yeah.
Just FYI.
Good point.
It is from China. Eek!
Yeah.
I just looked it up.
You know, a lot of products come from China, and it's an important thing to try to do your research about because that travel issue is so intense and counterproductive. I can see that John has a question. I can't see anybody else, but
Yeah, thanks, Karen and Patty. With all the regenerative practices for farming, how do we overcome, besides just one farmer doing it to another farmer doing it, resistance to those practices? Because certainly the Farm Bill doesn't help because it focuses on 5 or 6, I'll call it ag crops as opposed to food crops. So
That's a
what
really
the track
great
record, what
question.
is the track record at this point? And and is it going to be ever things that we can look at beyond just specialty crops?
Okay, well, I think, John, that's a great question. And right now, the average age of farmers in Illinois is 56 years old. And that's come down. So we're trying to get new farmers in, but most of the new farmers that are farming need to get some help. And they were relying on grants like EKIP grants. And EKIP grants are grants that you can get, you do the work and you get reimbursed. And there are farmers in Illinois who have done work and they're not getting reimbursed because they're holding the money for the grants. Let's see if that comes or not. So we're in a very, very difficult time. But when you say farmer to farmer, it's really important that you understand what that means. You might not realize, but there is Soil Health Institute, Soil Health Academy, there is Soil Food Web down in Southern Illinois. There is the new opening center in Cincinnati in Wisconsin that's going to be a farmer to farmer training. There are a lot of these places that are training farmers so that they can do it themselves with know-how. And you saw that it's really hard to start, but on the flip side, farmers, I want to say it's called Farmer's Story, but that's not it. Farmers Friends, maybe, in Texas, where a family decided they were so tired of all the cancer clusters for farmers that they went regenerative overnight, and all of their neighboring farmers, they just laughed at them in social media. And now, 5 years later, they're all in regenerative agriculture. because farmers have had land for 3, 4, 5, 6 generations. They want to figure out how to hold the land, and they can't hold the land with conventional agriculture. They have to move forward. And even our big, 3 summers ago, General Mills said they put 1 million acres under regenerative agricultural practices by 2030. Cargill followed that up the next year and said 10 million acres. So everybody is starting to cover crop. Everybody is starting to do less tilling. There are things that they can do without spending a lot of money. And they know they have to do it or they're not going to be able to raise food on their farm. So it's a very tough question, but it is moving in that direction.
Great.
That's encouraging. I didn't know about all those initiatives
Yeah.
that you mentioned.
I just wanted to note that Holly is still in the meeting, but her microphone doesn't work. But she wants everybody to know that Who Gives a Crap does build toilets as well. That's a very strange thing to say, but that's her statement.
And are the toilets built in China? Sorry.
So
I had the opportunity this summer to go to the last fall, actually, and I've been there since then, to Cincinnati, to this new farmer to farmer training center. And there's some of the folks from Soil Health Academy who have helped start it. And it's amazing what they're doing, because they're literally making this working farm that all these farmers come and they take them out on wagons and show them all of the cover crops. I thought, 2 or 3 cover crops, put a little legumes, maybe some clover. No, the demonstration was 10 different cover crops, and they'd only planted them 3 weeks before. And that was in the picture. The field was green. And the man who spoke, the farmer who spoke, Tom Cotton, he was doing 20. So these farmers know what's going on. They're so smart, and they're teaching each other, and they're excited about the yields that they're getting. And and it's not saying get rid of all your cattle. It's saying use your cattle to improve the health of the soil. So you're working with farmers to be able to make these advances.
So Georgia Littner, I believe from Indiana, says that these methods should be taught to future farmers of America, young high schoolers. Is that going on?
A little bit.
We hope to
That's a
expand
tough crowd.
Yeah, not enough.
The cool part about the Cincinnati area is it's up in the southwest Wisconsin, northwest Illinois, and the eastern part of Iowa. It's the driftless area. And it's abnormal because when all the icebergs came through, they didn't pull everything with them like they did everywhere else to make this flat land. So they're dealing with a little bit hillier terrain. And because of that, they've had to focus more on what are the best things to do for their land. And their future farmers of America are following this, but I can't say the future farmers of America everywhere are in tune to this.
But one thing we're also hoping to do is actually to bring some of this information into just general schools in the Chicago area to help get kids to be on board around understanding the importance of this, with the idea that it will drift up to their parents in terms of having more sustainable practices.
I've presented this to environmental science classes in the Chicagoland area.
Brian, I think has.
Brian had a question.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. This is great. I'm very interested in the nature-based climate solutions. I'm wondering if you're aware, or if you're hearing any other farmers or anybody talking about hemp and its benefits, because it's my understanding that it absorbs a ton of carbon, is edible, regenerates soil, could be helpful as far as using it as a cover crop, and that there's a ton of uses, but I don't really ever hear people talking about it. So I'm just wondering if you have any knowledge about it or experience with it.
And it actually sequesters 15 times more than trees, and it grows so fast, it replenishes itself. And it's also great for textiles. I think the problem is the fact that you said you can eat it. And that's where we get a little bit concerned about what are we using to eat for. But it is, in my opinion, it's the wonder crop. It's the crop we need to grow.
Yeah.
Spectacular.
What
Patty,
is
why
it going
do
to
you
take
think-
for it to
why do you-
happen, you know?
Well,
Why
I
do you
think,
think there's so little about it? Why do you think that?
I think it's not going to make the same kind of material as a cottonwood or a wool wood, but it is very durable. It can be used to make a lot of different things. And textile, it can be used. There are places that have used hemp to make building blocks that are supposedly supposed to be as strong as bricks. So it's a new innovative thing that we haven't talked about because we've cleared all of our, with the Dust Bowl, we put up all these great trees. Now we cleared them all so we could plant every single speck of our land. And now farmers are starting to try to figure out what is the smart crop. And I really think hemp is one of the things of the future that we really do need to plant.
Can I add something? I'm Brian and I'm in the New Jersey chapter. So I worked in the auto industry where I learned about the many uses of hemp. So this meeting actually inspired me. I texted my co-chair. So I've given a couple presentations on the history of hemp, the many uses and where we are as far as in their development. So, I mean, real quickly, like the reason that it's not being used, like this information has been suppressed. Our government has been lobbied by the many industries that it's a threat to. And a lot of the other, alternatives have 100 years of infrastructure behind it. So, we give subsidies to things that are not going to be helpful. And then we'd say, okay, well, the good alternative is too expensive. So then we don't go with it. And then, it's tied in with cannabis as well. So you will all be invited. I'm going to be doing a climate reality project presentation as well on the uses of hemp because it really ties into so many things, So thank you for letting me say that and ask that question.
Great job.
Okay, so thanks again. Wonderful presentation. And I think we have emails, and I think Karen and Patty can get back to people for any further questions afterwards. So during the meeting, we had over at the peak, we had about 26 people on. More than half or about half were from out of state. So I want to thank all the out of state people for attending. Your support has been very valuable for us, and we really enjoy it. We're going to move on to chapter business. So if you get off now because you're not interested in some chapter business, we won't take that as an insult. So we'll move on right now. First thing is Tom Coleman. You're aware he's not here today. Yesterday he was not feeling well, and he checked into a hospital, and they are running tests on him. And we were scheduled. He and I were scheduled to do a presentation to the Portland, Oregon chapter on our climate disinformation presentation. And he said he was going to do it from the hospital. And I said, Tom, you're not in control of your schedule when you're in the hospital. If they want to pull you away for a scan, they're going to pull you away. And he didn't believe me, but now he knows that he's not in control of his own time. So, so he's still in the hospital. He's feeling better, but they want to do more scans on him. So he checked in with a headache and some other issues. And by this time now, he's raring to come home, but they're not letting him. So they're just going to do some more tests. Hopefully he'll be released tomorrow. So on another subject, I think, John, I think you're here. Can you give an update on the elections and what's the latest status?
We closed yesterday, and we've only had 3, at least as of 11 o'clock last night, and we only had 3 people submit applications, which were Tom, Cynthia, and Pam. And so no one else submitted anything over that time frame. And so certainly I can't be from lack of knowledge, because we sent the nomination form out 3 times. And so that's what we've had as formal submissions and self-nomination.
Okay,
So Tom was for education, Pam was for campaigns, and Cynthia's for communication.
would it be possible to hold it open again for anybody else to relax the deadline if somebody else wants to submit a self-nomination form?
The answer should be yes, but I've got to go in and get and would have to reopen. But at some,
Okay.
I guess, something I would just thinking aloud here, Bruce. April 1st was the time frame that we're looking to transition, so you really don't have
Much time,
but a handful of days even to leave it open anymore.
Well,
right?
we really are interested in having some new people join the leadership of the chapter. So if you have any interest at all, I would really encourage you to submit a nomination for yourself, and we'll figure out some way to make it work.
I agree. So any other issues before we adjourn? It looks like it's just us Chicago people now.
Thanks very much, Karen and Patty.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, there was a
great job.
lot of material there with a lot of hard work put into it, you can tell. So thanks again.
And Patty, did you get my message about?
I did.
Okay,
Yeah, that was a really good presentation. I enjoyed it a lot. And I really want the, especially your HOA guide.
Mhm.
It's actually, I think it's in the resources on the chapter resource page, and so is the Green at Home. The other guides Karen talked about are not there yet.
Okay.
But those two should be there. But Karen, if you let Karen know, she'll email them out. She's got
Okay.
nothing else to do.
Karen, I'm
Patty.
letting you know, Karen.
Okay, I'm writing it down, Jeff.
Patty, when you say resources, do you mean on the web page or in the drive?
In the